Hi guys, let's read the Physical and World Geography section of 12th series of ALS Current Affairs 2019-2020. So the first topic under this section would be solar minimum. So why was this in the news? According to researchers, the sun is reportedly going in a solar minimum. Therefore, cosmic rays have started intensifying, which could be dangerous for astronauts and can cause more space storms. A solar minimum is a regular part of the sunspot cycle. Cycle lasts on average 11 years, in which the sun's magnetic field becomes weak, allowing extra cosmic rays into the solar system. The cosmic rays are high energy particles which move through space with the speed of the light. The cosmic rays are intensifying because of the lack of sunspots and solar flares that appear on the surface of the sun due to magnetic fields. It has been continuing rather longer than expected, which means the sun is in the midst of a particularly deep solar minimum. Some astronomers have said that the sun's lowered output could result in a little ice age, but this logic has been rejected by many, with research suggesting that multiple factors, particularly volcanic activity, were crucial for causing the cooler temperatures. So this figure it shows solar maximum and the right side shows solar minimum. Now let's come to its impacts. This may cause health risks to astronauts traveling through space as the sun's magnetic field weakens and provides less shielding from these cosmic rays. A solar minimum would serve to neutralize a few years of warming caused by human activities and greenhouse gas emissions. The excess cosmic rays affect the electrochemistry of Earth's upper atmosphere and may help to trigger lightning. What are sunspots? They are temporary phenomena on the sun's photosphere that appear as spots darker than the surrounding areas. They are regions of reduced surface temperature caused by concentrations of magnetic field flux that inhibit convection. Sunspots usually appear in pairs of opposite magnetic polarity. Now let's come to parallel universe. So why was this in the news? Twitter and other social media platforms are abuzz with the so-called parallel universe that NASA has discovered. According to the claims, NASA has detected a parallel universe in Antarctica where time runs backwards. In quantum mechanics, a parallel universe is theorized as existing alongside our own, although undetectable. The recent reports claiming that there is evidence of a parallel universe appear to be based on ANITA findings that are at least a couple of years old. A science magazine had published a feature discussing some anomalous results coming from neutrino detection experiments in Antarctica. It discussed a speculative cosmological model that posits there's an antimatter universe. So there's an antimatter universe extending backwards from the Big Bang. This theorem was also proposed by famous scientist Stephen Hawking. The Anita experiment. 4 years ago, an experiment had spotted a handful of instances of what seemed to be highly energetic neutrinos coming through the Earth. It was named Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna, that is ANITA, ANITA experiment. So it's called Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna Experiment, a high altitude helium balloon with an array of radio antennas partially funded by the NASA. The telescope could spot these neutrinos coming from the space and hitting the ice sheet in Antarctica. Anita detected these particles, but instead of coming from the space, the neutrinos were found to be coming from the Earth's surface without any source. These detections happened in 2016, then again in 2018, but there was no credible explanation. Physicists have been working to figure out if these results can be explained with our current models of physics or have something to do with the experimental setup itself, or if something like the parallel universe does exist. Now let's come to neutrinos. Neutrino is a subatomic particle that is very similar to an electron, but it has no electrical charge and a very small mass, which might even be zero. Neutrinos are one of the most abundant particles in the universe. Because they have very little interaction with matter, they are incredibly difficult to detect. Now let's come to the next topic, that is heat waves. So why was this in the news? Heat wave conditions intensified in most of the northern states of India recently, with the mercury breaching the 46-degree mark in parts of the NCT. So, heat waves. The India Meteorological Department (IMD) predicted that the heat wave condition will prevail over the plains of northwest India, central India, and adjoining interior parts of eastern India due to the prevailing dry northwesterly winds over these areas. So, what is heat wave? A heat wave is a period of abnormally high temperatures, more than the normal maximum temperature that occurs during the summer season in the northwestern parts of India in the month March to June. The possible factors responsible for heat waves include shifting of jet streams, El Nino and La Nina, anthropogenic factors like heat islands, etc. The Indian Meteorological Department (IMD) has provided the following criteria to define heat waves. The first criteria is: heat wave need not be considered till the maximum temperature of a station reaches at least 40 degrees Celsius to plains and at least 30 degrees Celsius for hilly regions. When the normal maximum temperature of a station is less than or equal to 40 degrees Celsius, heat wave departure from normal is 5 degrees Celsius to 6 degrees Celsius, and severe heat wave departure from normal is 7 degrees Celsius or more. So, when the normal maximum temperature of a station is less than or equal to 40 degrees Celsius, heat wave departure from normal is 5 degrees Celsius to 6 degrees Celsius, and severe heat wave departure from normal is 7 degrees Celsius or more. When the actual maximum temperature remains 45 degrees Celsius or more, irrespective of normal maximum temperature, heat waves should be declared. Implications of heat waves. It leads to physiological stress, which sometimes can claim human life. Exposure to heat waves compromises the body's ability to regulate temperature and can result in a cascade of illnesses, including heat cramps, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, and hyperthermia. It affects the transmission of diseases, health service delivery, air quality, and critical social infrastructures such as energy, transport, and water. Strategies to address heat waves. So, how can heat waves be addressed? Establishment of early warning system and interagency coordination for prediction of heat waves and issuance of alert. Public awareness and community outreach to increase public awareness on how to protect against extreme heat through different mediums. Capacity building and training program for healthcare professionals at different levels to recognize and respond to heat wave related illnesses. Collaboration with non government organizations, that is, NGOs, and civil society to provide support in distress situations. Now let's come to the next topic, that is South Atlantic anomaly. So why was this in the news? Recently, the Swarm constellation of satellites of the European Space Agency ESA has updated the development of South Atlantic anomaly SAA. What is South Atlantic anomaly SAA? The South Atlantic anomaly is referred to the behavior of Earth's geomagnetic field in an area between Africa and South America. The SAA is an area where the Earth's inner Van Allen radiation belt comes closest to the Earth's surface, dipping down to an altitude of 200 kilometers. This leads to an increased flux of energetic particles in this region and exposes orbiting satellites to higher than usual levels of radiation. The effect is caused by the non concentricity of the Earth and its magnetic dipole. So the effect is caused by the non-concentricity of the Earth and its magnetic dipole. The South Atlantic anomaly SAA is the near Earth region where the Earth's magnetic field is weakest relative to an idealized Earth-centered dipole field. Weakening of the magnetic field. Over the last 200 years, the magnetic field has lost around 9% of its strength on a global average. A large and rapid shrink has been observed in the SAA region over the past 50 years, just as the area itself has grown and moved westward. The weakening of the magnetic field is also causing technical difficulties for the satellites and spacecraft orbiting the planet. The study conducted between 1970 and 2020 said that the magnetic field weakened considerably in a large region stretching from Africa to South America, known as the SAA. This area has grown and moved westward at a rate of around 20 km per year. Its impact. The magnetic shield has an important role to play in keeping unwanted radiation away as well as helping determine the location of magnetic poles. Even though Unlike global warming or any weather change, this anomaly doesn't directly impact human lives. It could actually bring on a change in the way we access technology. The reversal and apparent shift, which could keep extending, could actually impact satellite and telecommunication system, which means that some of the internet and mobile phone functioning which depend on satellite signals can possibly get disrupted. It could also affect the mapping and navigation systems in smartphones. The weakening of Earth's magnetic field could also impact migratory movement. Birds, animals, all those who migrate with the change in season and depend on the Earth's mapping to move about can find it a little difficult. This is also a possibility, but we don't know the extent of the damage till now. Now let's come to Van Allen radiation belt. A Van Allen radiation belt is a zone of energetic charged particles, most of which originate from the solar wind, that are captured by and held around a planet by that planet's magnetic field. The belts are located in the inner region of Earth's magnetosphere. So the belts are located in the inner region of Earth's magnetosphere. The belts trap energetic electrons and protons. Earth has two such belts and sometimes others may be temporarily created. Most of the particles that form the belts are thought to come from solar wind and other particles by cosmic rays. By trapping the solar wind, the magnetic field deflects those energetic particles and protects the atmosphere from destruction. Swarm constellation. Swarm is a European Space Agency mission to study the Earth's magnetic field. It is ESA's, that is European Space Agency's first constellation of satellites for Earth observation. The Swarm constellation consists of three satellites, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie, placed in two different polar orbits, two flying side by side at an altitude of 450 km and the third at an altitude of 530 km. Now let's come to the next topic, that is Kashmiri saffron. So why was this in the news? Recently, the Kashmiri saffron was accorded the geographical indication, that is the GI tag, by the Geographical Indications Registry headquartered in Chennai. So what is this Kashmiri saffron? It is cultivated and harvested in the Karwar highlands of Jammu and Kashmir. So it is cultivated and harvested in the Karwar highlands of Jammu and Kashmir. It is grown in Pulwama, Badgam, Kishtwar, and Srinagar. It rejuvenates health and is also used in cosmetics and for medicinal purposes. The unique characteristics of Kashmiri saffron are its longer and thicker stigmas, natural deep red color, high aroma, bitter flavor, chemical-free processing, and high quantity of crocin. So it has high quantity of crocin. Coloring strength. Saffronel, that is flavor, and pyrocrocin, bitterness. So, the unique characteristics of Kashmiri saffron are its longer and thicker stigmas, natural deep red color, high aroma, bitter flavor, chemical free processing, and high quantity of crocin, which is the coloring strength. saffronal flavor, and precocrocine bitterness. It is the only saffron in the world which is grown at an altitude of 1600 to 1800 meters above mean sea level. There are three types of saffron which are available in Kashmir, such as the first one is Lacha saffron, the second one is Mongra saffron, and the third one is Gucci saffron. So now let's come to the first saffron, that is Lacha saffron. The stigmas are separated from the flowers and dried without further processing. Now let's come to Mongra saffron, that is the second type. The stigmas are detached from the flower, dried in the sun and processed traditionally. Now let's come to the third type, that is Gucci saffron. It is similar to Lacha saffron, but the stigmas of Gucci saffron are joined together in a bundle tied with a cloth thread. The saffron cultivation in Kashmir was introduced by Central Asian immigrants around 1st century BCE, and in ancient literature saffron is referred to as bahukam. So in ancient literature saffron is referred to as bahukam. Now let's come to the next topic, that is Challenger Deep. So, why was this in the news? Recently, astronaut and oceanographer Kathy Sullivan, who was the first American woman to walk in space in 1984, became the first woman and the fifth person in history to descend to the deepest known spot in the world's oceans, called the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench. Through this expedition, the team hopes to observe volcanic vents, identify new species, and conduct the extensive mapping of the U.S. Exclusive Economic Zone at the request of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration (NOAA). Kathy descended to the Challenger Deep in a submersible vehicle which is operable underwater. Now let's come to Challenger Deep. The average depth of the ocean is about 12,100 feet, and the deepest part of the ocean is called the Challenger Deep, which is located below the surface of the western Pacific Ocean in the southern end of the Mariana Trench. The Mariana Trench is part of a global network of deep troughs that cut across the ocean floor and form when two tectonic plates collide. At the collision point, one of the plates dives beneath the other into the Earth's mantle, creating an ocean trench. Challenger Deep is approximately 36,200 feet deep, and it is named after the HMS Challenger, whose crew first sounded the depths of the trench in 1875. Earlier explorations associated with Challenger Deep. The first dive at Challenger Deep was made in 1960 by Lieutenant Don Wells and Swiss scientist Marquis Picard on a submersible called Trieste. In 2012, film director James Cameron reached the bottom of the Mariana Trench at a depth of about 10,908 meters on a dive in his submersible called the Deep Sea Challenger, and became the first to complete a solo submarine dive in this spot. Why are scientists interested in deep ocean areas? Most of the existing knowledge of the oceans comes from shallower waters. while deeper waters remain relatively unexplored, even as humans are relying more on these areas for food, energy, and other resources. More information about the deep ocean could potentially lead to the discovery of sources for medicinal drugs, energy sources, food, and other products, and it could also help in the prediction of tsunamis and earthquakes. It is also helping the mankind to understand how the Earth's environment is affecting us and getting affected by our activities. What does it take to reach the deep ocean? Scientists can be carried to the deep sea by vehicles called human occupied vehicles HOVs, or alternatively unmanned vehicles called remotely operated vehicles ROVs can also be used. The ROVs, that is remotely operated vehicles, are linked to the ships via cables and scientists can steer them remotely. Challenges associated with deep sea exploration. It is difficult to move private citizens to dive deeper more than 100 feet below the surface of the ocean, and most recreational divers cannot explore more than about 120 feet down due to the amount of air needed for keeping lungs pressurized at depth. Such depths could lead to nitrogen narcosis, the intoxication by nitrogen that starts to set in around that depth. Now let's come to the next topic, if that is IFlows Mumbai. IFLOWS Mumbai. So IFlows Mumbai. So why was this in the news? In order to address the flood problems in Mumbai, an integrated flood warning system called IFlows Mumbai was launched on June 19, 2020. IFlows Mumbai. It is an integrated flood warning system for Mumbai. It is developed as a state of the art integrated flood warning system for Mumbai to enhance the resilience of the city of Mumbai by providing early warning for flooding, especially during high rainfall events and cyclones. It is built on a modular structure and comprises of 7 modules, namely data assimilation, flood, inundation, vulnerability, risk, dissemination module, and decision support system. The system incorporates weather models from National Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasting NCMRWF, India Meteorological Department IMD, field data from the rain gauge between field data from the rain gauge network stations set up by Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology IITM, Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai MCGM, and IMD. Thematic layers on land use, infrastructure, etc., provided by MCGM. It has provisions to capture the urban drainage within the city and predict the areas of flooding which will be incorporated in the final system. A web GIS based decision supports system is built to calculate the vulnerability and risk of elements exposed to flood. Now let's come to the next topic, that is Lona Crater Lake. So what is this Lona Crater Lake? Recently, the water in the Lona Lake in the Buldhana district of Maharashtra was found to be turning reddish. The local administration of the district has requested the National Environmental Engineering Research Institute NEERI Nagpur to find out the reason behind it. Key points. The color of water in Maharashtra's Lona Lake, also known as Leonard Crater, has changed to red. It is said to be normal when the lake gets rainwater. Probable reasons are, the first one is algal bloom. An algal bloom or algae bloom is a rapid increase or accumulation in the population of algae in freshwater or marine water systems and is often recognized by the discoloration in the water. Change in color is generally attributed to algal bloom in the lake around the time of monsoon. Change in salinity. Due to the evaporation of water, the salinity in the water increases. Hence, it is believed to be a factor behind the change in color. Biological change. The color change seems to be a biological change in the Lona crater, as during the lockdown phase there was no disturbance to the lake and naturally it has turned red. Now let's come to Lona Lake. Lona Lake, also known as Leonard Crater, is a notified National Geoheritage Monument located at Lonar in Buldhana district, Maharashtra. It was created by an asteroid collision with Earth impact during the Pleistocene epoch. It is one of the four known hypervelocity impact craters in ballistic rock anywhere on Earth. It sits inside the Deccan Plateau, a massive plain of volcanic basalt rock created by eruptions some 65 million years ago. Now let's come to the next topic, that is Nisarga. Nisarga. So why was this in the news? The Indian Meteorological Department IMD on 1st June 2020 issued red alert for Mumbai, Thane, Palghar, Raigad, Dhule, Nandurbar, and Nasik districts due to severe cyclonic storm Nisarga. So it was the first tropical. So Nisarga was the first tropical cyclone in 129 years to hit Maharashtra in the month of June. Nisarga is a name given by Bangladesh, one of the 13 countries that will take turns in naming future cyclones that form over the North Indian Ocean. Nisarga means nature in Bengali language. Nisarga is the first moniker on a list of new cyclone names that take effect this year. Nisarga is the second cyclonic storm of the 2020 North Indian Ocean cyclone season after Cyclone Amphan. So that's all guys. See you in my next video. Bye.